Good morning, good evening, or good night, depending on where you're at watching live. Guys, my name is Ango. This is the Ango Show. We changed it up this year. Maybe you missed yesterday's stream, but we are back to our live schedule. But this time we're doing it Monday through Friday, every single day, 12 p.m. Eastern, right here, across multiple platforms as well. Still working on getting TikTok's approval. But you guys already know the drill. We're going to talk about everything that happens in pro wrestling, everything that's happening on TV, everything that's happening behind the scenes, and of course, all the juicy stories. Now, with that being said, I appreciate you guys spending your time with me today. We have a very big episode. Last night was NXT, and of course, NXT continues its momentum. So we're going to talk about that a little bit in depth. And then, you know, Hulk Hogan had some very absurd comments that he made on the Impulsive podcast. I want to touch on that in a little bit. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some free agency and some other interesting stories. But ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys are all doing well. It has come to my understanding that this live schedule is going to take some time for people to get used to. Instead of live streaming at 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning, we've decided to go with a afternoon live stream. So if you're watching this live, I appreciate you. And if you're not watching this live, maybe just perhaps you have decided to watch this on demand or listen to it on Spotify or Apple or wherever it may be. Just shout out to you guys. If you guys want to support the show, there's a couple different ways you can do that. First being by simply just liking the video, liking the stream. That's always helpful. It's free. It costs you no money. It helps the growth of the channel. The point of these shows is to talk to the most loyal of the most loyal. And that means we're going to be engaging with the chat throughout the show. The last 10 minutes of the stream, I am introducing a new rule where in the last 10 minutes, I will only leave the chat for members only. So if you guys aren't a member, there's a couple different tiers that you could sign up for. We have hundreds of members on this channel. But of course, we're always looking for new members, and it starts at $1.99 a month. When the chat goes to members only, that means you are going to be highly prioritized when it comes to the questions that you may ask. Speaking of the questions that you may ask, keep in mind super chats or tips are the best way to guarantee that your questions will get read. And kicking us off today with a super chat is Sam Piboon for $4.99. He says, will Motor City Machine Guns debut NXT next week or October 1st at Chicago? I absolutely love this question, and I'm actually really excited that this question got brought up because the Motor City Machine Guns have been free agents for just a little bit of time. And quite honestly, guys, Motor City Machine Guns are one of my favorite tag teams in professional wrestling. Obviously, I grew up watching Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley dominate TNA. We saw them make a pit stop in AEW, and then they went back to TNA. Look, I think Motor City Machine Guns probably should debut at the NXT CW debut. We know that WWE is loading up that show. We also know that CM Punk will be there in Chicago. We know that WWE has a challenge that's been made on NXT last night, which is Giulia and Roxanne, and we'll obviously talk about that a little bit in depth. But they're loading up that show. And quite frankly, if you're the WWE, you probably should, because NXT is now going to arenas. So, Sam, to answer your question, I mean, nobody really knows when they're going to debut, when they're going to show up. Nobody knows if they're even for sure going to NXT. There is some rumors that they might be going to the main roster. But just kind of watching NXT lately, I do feel it is important that AEW and WWE truly understand how important it is to really take care of their tag team division, because that is something that is a little bit of a concern right now across all of these brands: NXT, Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision. It doesn't matter. A lot of companies are just kind of missing the boat on tag team wrestling. So if the Motor City Machine Guns are coming in, I'd prefer to see them at NXT. I'd prefer to see them get those tag team championship belts. We are going to talk about that tag team division because we do have new number one contenders as of yesterday, and they aren't even WWE signed talent. So that makes it a little bit more fun. Sam, thank you for the $4.99. I appreciate it. We got another super chat. This one came in from Superman Bassfisher. $5. Jordynne Grace is hot. Okay, well, hey, if that's how you choose to spend your money, that's how you choose to spend your money. Jordynne Grace is a free agent as of next year, I believe. I don't know exactly the date, but there's obviously a lot of rumors about Jordynne Grace and her future. We are definitely going to talk about that. Sam, Superman, both of you, thank you for the super chats. Appreciate it. Keep in mind, guys, those super chats guarantee that your questions get read. So if you guys want to support the channel, that is the best way to do that. There is another way to also support, which goes directly to me, meaning YouTube does not take 30% or 50% of your revenue that you are donating. I just dropped that in the chat. If you guys want to donate directly to me, you can. You don't have to, but of course it's always appreciated, and all the money that this channel makes goes into the future. So that's what we do here. Now, with that being said, I do want to talk about NXT. I think we should get NXT out of the way before we hit some of these other topics. A lot of good on NXT last night. Some things I didn't like, but for the most part, it's pretty cool, man. We've gotten to the point with NXT where they have built up the women's division as probably one of the best women's division in pro wrestling. And there is obviously a lot of aura surrounding this main event scene, which is Chelsea Green and Roxanne Perez. Obviously, we did see Giulia come out. Now, Giulia is an international talent standout, made her debut at No Mercy last night on NXT. She got physical with Chelsea Green, which, by the way, I just kind of want to throw this out there. I want to talk about this because Chelsea Green has been in the business for a very, very long time. And I see you guys in the chat talking about this, but here's what you need to know. Chelsea Green, longtime veteran. She's always been screwed by booking and management. And look, that type of shit happens. It's pro wrestling. And one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout time with pro wrestling is that it's all about the right place, right time. And Chelsea Green is one of those people, like, when's her opportunity going to come, right? Like, everybody wants to know when it's going to happen. We saw what she did before WWE. We saw her in WWE. We saw her get fired by WWE. She shows up full on confidence, gets in the face of Roxanne Perez, and then that's when Giulia comes out. This was a very strong way to end the show, being that Giulia is the free agent, being that she chose WWE over any other company. It's pretty massive. You know, I think a lot of times what ends up happening here is sometimes people get signed, they come to WWE, their whole aura changes, their presentation changes, their name changes. WWE wants to change everything about them, and quite honestly, I think it is absolutely ridiculous that WWE has done that, because if you look at Giulia, she's entered the company and she has gotten to the point where she's gotten to the point where now people are literally looking at her as a big deal. And that's what it is, man. Sometimes what they do before WWE just simply works, and all you have to do is bring them in. So you have a very, very nice situation where Chelsea Green comes out. She's talking her talk. She's talking her shit. She gets in the face of Roxanne. Giulia comes out. And I just want to say this, because one of the biggest criticisms I've had, I know I get blasted by the internet wrestling community, but WWE tends to be one of the best when it comes to presentation. They also tend to be one of the worst when it comes to giving people theme songs. It's no secret that I hate theme songs in pro wrestling. And Giulia comes out. She's got a great theme song, the entrance, the graphics, the lighting, the smoke. She comes out. Chelsea Green tries to get physical. She obviously gets her ass beat, and then Giulia hits her with a knee strike. 3 words in her promo. She goes to Roxanne. She looks at Roxanne and literally just says, "Me, you, CW." Now, I'm going to say this. I've talked to people in the television business, there is a lot of excitement about WWE NXT moving to the CW. And some of the sources that I've spoken to specifically regarding this is that the CW, trying to be more sports centric of a television network, one of their big plans is to really push NXT. And one of NXT's biggest plans is to put the women as part of the big focal point. And obviously, when you're doing that with Roxanne and Giulia, you will see good results. So I'm super excited about that. I thought that was a very big strength, a very big strength for NXT, because again, we're looking at a business that's been dominated by males for a long time. A lot of the main event stuff has always been, saturated by the men in the division. This is one of those times where, truth be told, WWE has it on lockdown with the women. It's very clear if you watch NXT, the women are at the top of the show, and that's good, man. That's good. It goes to show you that the interest is definitely there. So I'm super excited about that. We did get another super chat from Hannah. Hannah says, "You're the best." Thank you, Hannah. I love you. Appreciate that. Yeah, no, this is great episode of NXT. Obviously the Giulia stuff was great. Another thing that I want to talk about with NXT too, might as well get it all of this out of the way before we get to some of the other topics. The tag team division. We had number one contendership, triple threat match, Hank and Tank versus Gallus versus the Rascals. The Rascals aren't even signed to WWE. They're in TNA. Shout out to TNA. Good people over there. The Rascals come in. They have this number one contenders opportunity, and they win. And, I talk about tag team wrestling just kind of being like a little bit of a bore in WWE right now as it stands. But the reality is the Rascals being number one contenders is a great thing. I don't think WWE has plans for them to win the belts, but I already know the Rascals versus Fraxium will be a hell of a match. So I'm super excited about that. I do want to give some credit to Hank and Tank, bro. I don't know what the hell has happened, but these guys are somewhat fun to watch. It's kind of a weird time. And I'm looking at the chat, and I see a lot of people talking about Hank and Tank too, which is cool. So yeah, these guys, very inexperienced. They come out, they do this triple threat tag team match. It's a good match. It's very solid. These guys are getting the crowd into it. They're being a very big part of they're being a very big part of the match, in itself. And then what was really interesting is this match had a lot of chaos. Obviously, we saw Javon Edwards get in the mix, and then we saw the Good Brothers, which look, I don't know. Maybe people will disagree with me, and I'm very curious to see what you guys think, but I think the Good Brothers are being wasted right now. And it's weird, it's cool seeing Hank and Tank in this match, and obviously they're not going to win, but it gives them an opportunity to go in front of the audience and do their thing and try to get over, because that's ultimately what matters, right? We get a little bit of chaos because the Good Brothers are going after them, and I like the Good Brothers, but what the hell are they doing in NXT, right? That's the big question here. It's like, what are they doing in NXT? These guys were the biggest tag team in Japan. They were the biggest tag team in TNA. We saw them in AEW a little bit. They come to WWE, and I don't know. There's something really odd about that. There's something incredibly weird about the fact that WWE has gotten to the point where they have a tag team division and they don't know how to utilize them. I don't know. Is this a situation where WWE doesn't know how to utilize their tag team division? I don't think that's the case. I just don't think it's a focus. So when I see the Good Brothers are in that situation, I think it's kind of odd. I think it's very odd. To be honest with you guys, I think it's so strange that WWE has these loaded tag teams, yet none of them are really in massive stories on the main roster. So I thought the match was cool. I think it's cool that the Rascals won the match. I thought it was cool that Javon Edwards went after what am I saying? Hold on. I don't know why I said Edwards. Evans. I don't know why I said that. I think I've said that like literally 10 times now. Yeah, Javon Evans, Jay Malachi. It was a lot easier calling him by his indie name, but Javon Evans, like going after Joe Coffey, and then obviously you have to factor in you know, the Good Brothers getting involved. I think just the chaos in itself was good. I think it was a well put together match. It was kind of enjoyable. The other thing that I absolutely loved about NXT was Trick Williams and Pete Dunne. It's a very weird, unlikely feud, but for some reason it's heating up. It feels personal. I really loved them just brawling around the ring and everybody's getting involved. And there's just so much that is happening right there. But another good indication that NXT continues to be the most consistent brand on television. And it's a brand that is a studio-based wrestling show. So really love those things about NXT. I think the only thing I really didn't like about NXT, if I'm honest, I think Obafemi needs like a legitimate challenger. I think he needs a legitimate challenger. And I think for the North American Championship, like right now, there's nobody that seems like they'll be the one to take him out, take the belt from him. So that is something I did want to point out. Obviously, very... It's not even a bad thing. I think it's just a thing where it's like nobody's been built up in that mid card that seems like a legitimate threat to his championship reign. And that was one of the things I didn't like about NXT. But overall, a solid episode of NXT. I thought NXT has gotten to the point where it like if you watch it, you know, consistently every week the stories are being told. And that's good. I see some interesting comments in the chat. I know we need to definitely discuss this because Zach Pack says, I feel out of the loop because I know nothing about Thekla or Delta. And that's okay, brother. Like, you might be out of the loop a little bit, but there are tons and tons of big names out there and potential big names that are out there. You got to keep that in mind, that WWE and AEW still has a lot of opportunity to sign some big names. I mean, everybody thought Thekla would be going to AEW. There's been no update on that. A lot of people are looking into Giulia, and then Giulia gets rumored for WWE and AEW. And now we got to the point where like there's still a lot of talent that aren't signed to a major company. It's just the way wrestling is distributed, right? Like if you're not on television in America, most people will not know. Most people will not know. And I think that's a big thing. So, yeah, that's pretty damn important to acknowledge. So yeah, don't feel bad about it, Zach. I would say, listen, subscribe here, right? Like I'm going to keep you guys in the loop 24/7, whether we got 1 billion viewers or 10 viewers, it doesn't matter. We keep going. And that's the beauty of it. You guys know that I'm trusted with everything that I do. A lot of time and energy gets put into what we do. And I'm never going to misguide you. I'm never going to mislead you. And you never have to worry about a bias. I've got friends in WWE. I got friends in AEW. I got friends in TNA. But you guys are all my friends. And you guys always deserve to know the truth. You guys deserve to know all the stories and all the craziness that happens in pro wrestling. So I appreciate you and your loyalty to the channel. Chris says Zeta Steele is a name to watch. Interested to see where she signs. Yeah, Zeta Steele, young. I want to say Zeta Steele is like, I'm going to Google it actually, because I thought maybe she's like 19 or 20, but let's see. 20 years old. So imagine that, 20 years old. There's already rumors that WWE is bringing her in. So definitely a name to watch out for. I think, the women's division is just, it's stacked. It's completely different now in 2024 than it's ever been. If you go back in the day and watch WWE or wrestling, bra and panties matches and shit, like those were the times where they did not value women's wrestling. It is very clear in today's day and age, it is extremely valued. And that's the reason why, like when we talk about the CW, and we talk about WWE changing the channel for NXT, and we talk about Giulia and Roxanne. I mean, that is a position that like everybody wants to be in. And people forget how young Roxanne Perez actually is. So keep that in mind. Roxanne Perez is like the veteran of NXT at this point. She is ready for the main roster. She could be on WrestleMania next year because she's that good and she's ready for it. But it's important that people understand that she's still young. And the fact that WWE is putting a lot of trust in Roxanne and Giulia to tell this story and to headline the debut episode, that's pretty insane. So when they move to CW, I'm super curious about that. I look forward to that. But like I said, I know I talked to people at CW. I talk to people, and some of the things that I keep getting told is that there's just a lot of excitement. A lot of excitement. And that's huge, man. Like, it's very 2024. Look, let's just be pretty clear about this. In 2024, the TV networks actually care about pro wrestling. And I'll tell you guys this, and some of the OGs that follow me remember this, but the day that I signed my Amazon deal, Amazon had a huge initiative of getting into pro wrestling. And I spoke about this on their platform 2 years ago. It's going to be 3 years now. And I remember this video extremely well because I was talking about how pro wrestling live 52 weeks out of the year. WWE has 3 shows, not including main event or, NXT Level Up, right? But all this live content, that they're doing, it's gotten to the point where it has become much more reliable than reality TV and sometimes even other sports, right? If you look at sports, for example, and look how much time has changed since then. Amazon had acquired Bally Sports Network. So, like, for those who live in Detroit, this is a perfect example, but like, it's regional sports. But like for Detroit, for example, if I want to watch the Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers games, I have to have Bally Sports, right? It's not on a national channel. It's not on ESPN. It's not on TNT. Since then, Amazon has purchased the rights to Bally Sports. And so these streaming companies have realized that it is much better to invest in the future of wrestling on a national channel or a national streaming service because it's not limited, whereas sports are limited. Like, yes, WBD just got NBA and Amazon has NBA and all of these companies have the NBA, but they're only going to be showcasing 30 or 40 games per year. Whereas WWE and AEW and TNA, they do 52 weeks a year. WWE also does 12 to 14 live premium events. Sometimes they get other specials, not to mention they also do main event and all this other content. So the reality is when you see CW is now entering the fold for pro wrestling, the cool thing is they're not only willing to invest their money in it, but they're actually looking to significantly back the promotion and marketing of it. So everything that I'm hearing tends to be really positive about that. And then it goes back to Roxanne and Giulia. We're not talking about some of these other names. Like, we're talking about WWE and CW putting a lot of trust into Giulia being a top star. So very, very cool. And honestly, just watching NXT last night, like it was a good episode. I think the big thing for you guys too is like you guys watch every single week and you guys know that sometimes what I'm saying becomes redundant, right? Storytelling, consistency, following the story. Like, that's pretty huge. That is pretty huge. So yeah. Let's take a look at the chat. Did I miss any super chats? Let me see. Okay, I got one super chat. I cannot read that though. That is a little inappropriate. So I'll have to address that with you privately. But okay, yeah, let's keep going. Guys, I kind of want to talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about Giulia for a second. Let's talk about Giulia. Okay. Obviously, there is a lot of talk about Giulia coming into WWE. We all saw the segment. We saw her confront Chelsea Green and Roxanne Perez. We just talked a lot about how there's a lot of trust in Giulia. But the real question is, what is the long-term plan for Giulia? What is the long-term success for Giulia? And I find this to be a very interesting question because I know a lot of people are already starting to hate on Giulia, and that's just how the internet wrestling community works. Like, anytime somebody's becoming successful and it's not in the company that they want, people are obviously going to be bothered and they're going to be outspoken. And this is the part of the wrestling industry I absolutely do not respect. A lot of people are preying on the downfall of Giulia, and I'm here to say that if you're one of those people doing that, you're not going to be happy because Giulia is going to be on main roster at some point within a year or two. 100%. The reality is Giulia just needs to learn the American system. And the cool thing about Giulia coming into WWE and going specifically to NXT is that she could figure it out in real time. And I think a lot of people do tend to forget that is something that could be done. But there is a lot that could be done in real time. She is going to learn how to work the camera in front of the crowds. She's going to learn how to interact with the audience. She's going to learn how to have different facial expressions at different times. But the thing about her is that she's very polished. She is very polished in the ring. And I think a lot of times what is happening right now on social media is that a lot of people are upset with the fact that they automatically assume that WWE is going to make her tone down her in-ring style. And that could be true to a certain extent. But I think even if they do have her tone down her in-ring style, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think people really do forget how important aura and presentation is. Sometimes what ends up happening is that people have really good in-ring ability and they lack the presentation that is needed to be perceived in a higher light. And I don't want to say this because it sounds so nasty and it sounds like it's hurting people's feelings, and it's not a personal thing, but really what it is, it comes down to whether you simply have it or you don't. And I think Giulia is getting backlash on social media because wrestling fans that don't want her in WWE are obviously mad about that. But the reality is, long term, I think WWE has something incredibly special in Giulia. And this is how I think it's going to go. In Chicago, on the CW debut, Giulia will defeat Roxanne Perez. I make no mistake about it. I believe that they will hand her the title. And I do not know who the hell is going to take the belt off of her, but I have a very strong feeling that Giulia is going to be booked exactly like Asuka. The only difference that I think will actually end up happening is that Giulia will get called up to the main roster first, faster than Asuka did. And it's a little bit different now that Triple H, Paul Levesque runs the WWE, because with Vince McMahon, we know it's a little bit different. But it's really important that we acknowledge that Triple H, when he's ready, when he sees that Giulia has learned the American style of doing things, I think Triple H will call her up to the main roster. But I think she is going to be booked exactly like Asuka. And if I had to guess, Shawn Michaels already knows that is mandatory. And the good thing about that is how you create stars. Now, keep in mind, Asuka came into WWE. She came into NXT. She absolutely dominated. Not a lot of people knew who Asuka was prior to coming to WWE. Unless you were a real hardcore fan, most people typically didn't know who she was. So when she came into NXT and absolutely dominated and did all of these great things, what we all saw unfold in front of our eyes was simply dominance. And we basically knew that the way she was booked in NXT was not going to 100% translate into the main roster. So Giulia is in a little bit of a better situation because Vince McMahon is not in this company. Vince McMahon is not running this company. Kevin Dunn isn't running this company. The new regime is going to handle Giulia in ways that I think a lot of fans are going to be really pissed off that their favorite wrestling promotion did not be able to get her. But long term, I do believe Giulia will be a massive success. But I think it all starts with Roxanne. Now, we know that Delta's coming in. We know that Stephanie Vaquer is coming in. We know that WWE is building up so many different women in NXT. We know that they're working in a partnership with TNA. There is a lot of big time matchups that they can do. And I think really one of the best parts about this for WWE is simply the fact that there is no shortages of great matches that will ultimately make Giulia look good. And that's huge because that's exactly what they need to do. That's exactly what they need to do. They need to do those big time matchups to make people understand that this girl is going to be the future of the company. Now, I don't know how old Giulia is. I didn't decide to Google it before I went up live, but I think if you're the WWE and you push Giulia to the moon, you're doing something else that is really good for the brand of NXT, and that is you are having an opportunity being saved for Stephanie Vaquer, Zeta Steel, Delta, and whoever else they want to push. I think the more that they push Giulia to the top and they cement her as the final boss of NXT's women's division, whoever beats her, it's almost like a passing of the torch type of moment. And so I got really excited when I saw Giulia come out and attack Chelsea Green. I got really excited when I saw her confront Roxanne Perez, but I got excited because I'm starting to realize that WWE is laying out the plan right in front of us. AEW fans are mad about it. Stardom fans are mad about it. And I get it. I understand. But at the same time, too, wrestling fans should be less concerned about how a wrestler decides to go where they decide to go. They should be more concerned about other stuff because they have no personal attachment to the talent that are being utilized. And I find it so crazy how wrestling fans take it so personal. Giulia will absolutely not fail in WWE. I wouldn't expect her to fail in WWE. And let's just call it what it is. When she gets up to the main roster, there are tons and tons and tons of matches they can do. So not only can Giulia work against TNA talent, she can go back to Marigold as well. But then after she conquers NXT, she's going to go to the main roster and do it all over again. Guys, we're talking about building stars. Giulia is somebody who came from Japan. Nobody really knew exactly who she was unless you were a hardcore fan. So the beauty of this now is the fact that she is going to go into the WWE system, and WWE is going to talk about how great their performance center is at developing talent. And that's exactly what they want to do. And that's exactly how they're going to do it. So very, very interesting stuff there. I do want to go to this Hulk Hogan video. I know it's kind of random, but guys, I have been wanting to talk about it. It's only like a 12-second clip. Let's see if I can. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a look at this Hulk Hogan clip. I'm gonna go back and let's just take a listen. Let me make sure my audio is up and you guys can hear it. This is absolutely ridiculous.
If Chris Benoit can do the crap he did and the fans still love him, they're very forgiving. I've made some major mistakes in my personal life, and they're very, very forgiving, but they forgive you. But
now, what the hell is this? I don't know if you guys noticed this at all, but Hulk Hogan is basically saying if fans can forgive Chris Benoit for what he did, and fans forgive Hulk Hogan as well. And these are really absurd comments. Obviously, I don't know why that's even a thing that's being discussed, but I just want to talk about this. I don't know if you guys realize how stupid Hulk Hogan is for actually saying this. So let's talk about that. Hulk Hogan is talking about Chris Benoit, the guy who, I don't even know how else to say this. Chris Benoit is well known for having killed his family. And I have not met one person that has ever forgiven Chris Benoit for what he did. Did you guys see this video? Did you guys watch the episode of Impulsive? Like, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like, I'm watching this clip and I see Hulk Hogan like comparing his situation to Chris Benoit's, and both situations are bad. But no, I haven't seen a wrestling fan ever forgive Hulk Hogan. And I see the clip floating around, and obviously clips, it's bad for the industry because nobody's getting the full context, but I got the full context. And I just think Hulk Hogan talking about wrestling fans being so forgiving and all this stuff, it is just incredibly strange. It's incredibly strange. And I don't know why Hulk Hogan has gotten to the point where like everything he says at this point is just like ridiculous. But I don't remember the last time I saw an interview with Hulk Hogan where I genuinely enjoyed what was coming out of his mouth. And I see you guys in the chat talking about this. And I know it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So Hulk Hogan says these absurd ass comments about Chris Benoit and wrestling fans. And I just started scratching my head. And I just want to show that to you guys. I really want to show that to you guys because in my mind, I was just thinking this is a disaster. So, that's where we're at with it. That is literally where we are at with it. We got Hulk Hogan. First of all, if you forgive Chris Benoit, that says a lot about you. That says a lot about you. Strange. Guys, we are coming up. We're going to take a little quick break. We'll be back in 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. I don't know. We're going to be back. We're going to talk more topics. Go off in the chat. What do you guys want to talk about? Remember, super chats get priority. Members get priority. I will check out the chat. We'll be back in 60 seconds roughly. Ladies and gentlemen, give us a minute. And yeah.
Sometimes I'm broken, sometimes I'm tired, but I have to stand up and keep going. Even though that I'm falling, I know how to wake up. Even though that I'm falling, I know that I will always wake up. So good to find a way.
Want it like that, from the front to the back like that. Want it like that, from the front to the back like that. Want it like that, from the front to the back like that. Want it like that, from the front to the back like that. All I wanna do is see you dance like that. Bring it from the front to the back like that. All I wanna do is see you dance like that. Bring it from the front to the back, back. All I wanna do is see it like that. From the front to the back, back. All I wanna do is see you dance like that, like that. Want it like that, Want it like that. Want it like that. Wanna dance like that. Want it like that. Dance like. Want it like that. Want it like that. Want it like that. Wanna dance like that. Want it like that. Dance like that. Dance like that. All I wanna do is see you dance like that. Bring it from the front to the back like that. All I wanna do is see you dance like that. Bring it from the front to the back like that. Want it like that. Like that. Want it like that.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys for waiting. I appreciate your patience. We got a little bit of breaking news while we were gone, taking a little bit of a break. MLW has re-signed Akira to a deal. This was reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Originally, his deal was set to expire at the end of 2024, and they have learned that he's extended that contract for another 2 years. So good signing by MLW. Glad to see that they're retaining talent. Very, very interesting stuff there. So if you guys watch MLW, there's your little tidbit for the day. I do want to talk about some stuff. I saw some really good messages in the chat. So one of the things that was just brought up in the chat was, where is AJ Styles? Where is Gigi Dolan? Where is Kiana James? And these are all great questions because there is a huge issue in WWE and AEW where talent disappear. And I swear, if there's one thing that grinds my gears, it's when WWE and AEW feature talent on their TV show and then they disappear with no explanation. And it happens quite often. We saw it with Ricky Starks. We saw it with Miro. We saw it with a variety of talent in AEW. We see it in WWE. And quite honestly, it is annoying. And I wanted to address this because there is a very interesting argument to this, because some people feel like wrestling companies shouldn't have to disclose injuries. Tony Khan has specifically talked about this at a media scrum where he says that injuries, sometimes talent don't want it to be shared and whatnot, and maybe a show dedicated to like an injury report or whatever. I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that it's very annoying when you see talent show up. Kiana James is a great example. Kiana James was drafted to WWE Raw. We saw her a little bit slowly being introduced on TV. We see her have a match, and then WWE pulls her from TV. We know that Gigi Dolan is injured, but we know that because the internet exists. We don't know that because WWE has told us or the television show itself has told us. So we are living in a very interesting time in pro wrestling because people show up on TV and they get removed. Odyssey Jones showed up on TV. Odyssey Jones was getting pushed on TV, and then Odyssey Jones was removed. WWE has yet to even comment on that. But we did talk about it the other day that Odyssey Jones had domestic violence allegations brought up, and that was the reason for it. The point that I'm trying to make is that I do feel like there should be a little bit of transparency between the wrestling companies and its audience, especially when it comes to the talent that they're featuring. If they're injured and you don't want to explain what their injury is, I think it's really important for them to at least just mention, hey, they're injured. You don't have to say what the injury is. You don't have to do any of that, but just let us know that they're injured, right? It's a simple 30-second thing that they could do on commentary. And for some reason, WWE doesn't do this. Why are WWE talent disappearing? And I think the real issue here is that WWE is not fully prepared. And I think AEW as well. I think they do not have plans for everybody. I think it is very clear that WWE has a very specific plan for very specific members of the roster. And if you are not one of those members of the roster, it's just kind of like a wait and see. And I do think that is some bullshit, to be honest. I think the perfect example of this was Odyssey Jones. Odyssey Jones was literally called up 2 years ago to the main roster, barely was on NXT television, so nobody really knew who he was. He got drafted. Everybody was shocked. He's working live events, but he doesn't appear on TV. Then he gets drafted a year later, and WWE is in the same situation where Odyssey Jones gets drafted again, and we don't see him for some time, to the point where everybody thought he was released. Then he shows up on TV, then he's getting over with the crowd, and then he gets removed from TV. And again, the domestic violence case, it's very serious allegations, so it makes sense as to why WWE pulled him, but WWE is quite quiet on this, and I think that is problematic. There needs to be transparency, and if I'm the WWE, I would be transparent with my audience, because ultimately it is your job to be transparent. You don't have to give us all the details, but you should be transparent. And I think it actually adds more to the sports entertainment feel of the product. Like if Kiana James, for example, let's just say Kiana James isn't injured, but let's just say Kiana James was on TV. Dude, why not put it into a storyline that she's being sent back to NXT? Like if talent are getting called up and there's no plan for them, like put that into television. Find a way to tell a story about it. I think wrestling fans connect with wrestlers when there's more emotion tied to the individual that is on screen. And I feel like if you're trying to be more sport-like, which we see this in sports all the time. I see this all the time in basketball. There's guys who get minutes in a game and they have a poor performance, and then they get, they get pushed down to the bench. They get benched or whatever. Sometimes in the NBA, if you're not good enough, you start to struggle. They put your ass in the G League. So to me, I'm looking at like pro wrestling as like, hey, you're putting people on TV. You take them off of TV. You're doing nothing with them. I feel like there's got to be something they can do differently about it, because why are they pushing people, or why are they putting people on TV without a plan? Lack of planning is absolutely terrible. And it's a real shame, to be honest with you guys, when I watch WWE and I get excited because Kiana James was killing it in NXT. Ricky Starks was killing it in AEW. And people get pulled off of TV. And then what you end up having is the internet wrestling community speculating. And there is nothing worse than when people are speculating, because people will speculate with the wrong message and they will make it sound like something really bad has happened, and maybe that's not the case. There have been times in AEW where talent have been removed from TV, nothing publicly mentioned, and then it turns out that that talent was actually suspended, and we had to find out from the dirt sheets. I do find that to be problematic. And maybe it's not a big deal for a lot of people, but for me, it's a big deal, because at the end of the day, we watch a 3-hour television show and break it down, and we're watching these shows and we're hoping to connect with these people. We want to see them do big things. So it has gotten to the point where, like, I feel like as we're watching the shows, start and stop pushes have become a problem. Why do WWE stars disappear? It really comes down to a lack of planning. Forget about domestic violence accusations, because I get that. And forget about injuries, because even though I can argue with that, I still understand and I still get that. Those two things I get. But there's a lot of times where people are being put on TV and they're being taken off. And if they're not good enough for TV, find a way to tell us why. Or better yet, send them down to NXT and then literally say, hey, we feel like you need more training. Adam Pearce doing a backstage segment. Listen, we're going to send you back to the Performance Center. I have an expectation for what I want on my roster. I don't know. I just feel like that could be a really good touch to the show. I feel like that could be a really good thing for the show. And I think it could be really good for the talent, because if they do go back down to NXT and they start doing good things in NXT, guess what? You're going to have a lot of people start tweeting out or bringing signs that say, give Kiana James a chance. And don't get me started on AJ Styles and some of these other people that are top stars. The whole thing that we have nothing for you, it just simply doesn't work. It's a problem in pro wrestling. It's happening in every company. It's not just WWE, but it is absolutely ridiculous that it is happening. And I don't like that at all. We did get a couple super chats, so let's take a look at those. Rick Corella has dropped a $5 super chat. What do you think about Tommy Dreamer believing that Shane is going to show up in AEW? What do you think about Tommy Dreamer believing that Shane is going to show up in AEW? Rick, this is a great question. I do believe Shane McMahon is showing up in AEW. I think Shane McMahon is going to show up in AEW, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for AEW when he does show up. Honestly do. I really do. This is a McMahon. This is a McMahon. The McMahons no longer own the WWE, but nobody would have ever guessed or ever believed that it is actually possible for it to happen. Now, we saw something last week on Dynamite. We saw Dean Ambrose, aka Jon Moxley. I'm still going to call him Dean Ambrose from time to time. I don't know why. I just do. But Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir taking over the company. Guys, who started WWE Raw Battleground? That was a Shane McMahon idea during the COVID era. So there is something happening with Shane McMahon going to AEW. That picture that leaked of Shane McMahon and Tony Khan talking, having a meeting, I don't care if Tony Khan denies it. I don't care who denies it. I don't care really what anybody says about it, other than the simple fact that I truly believe Shane McMahon and Tony Khan's photo was leaked on purpose. It took headlines. It took the internet by storm. And the reality is there is a lot of excitement about that possibility that Vince McMahon's son could be showing up for the opposing company. Now, I don't know how Vince McMahon feels. I don't know how the WWE feels. But I will tell you guys this. There was a story that came out that Shane McMahon tried to, re-sign with the WWE and TKO was not interested. There was a story that came out months ago that was the case. After WrestleMania, they wanted Shane wanted to stay in WWE. He wanted to be part of it. He was doing creative pitches apparently, and WWE decided against it. So I don't think WWE gives a rat's ass if Shane McMahon's in AEW. But I think for AEW, it's actually a good thing. I think they should get Shane McMahon. I love the idea of Shane McMahon being in AEW. And Rick, one thing I want to mention here is Tommy Dreamer believes it, but I think a lot of wrestling fans at this point genuinely believe it. But if you look at AEW and you look at their product and where they struggle, it's that a lot of times their storylines aren't the big talk. If you go on social media, if you go on YouTube, there's not a lot of people who are actually talking about storylines. Instead, what ends up happening is a lot of people are talking about the drama surrounding the company. And if you look at Shane McMahon as a new addition to AEW, and let's say they got a storyline with him and Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir in this takeover, a whole bunch of former WWE stars, right? That's a storyline driven topic for people to discuss. AEW has less attendance, less viewership. The company's numbers in that regards has gone down a little bit. And that's okay. That's going to happen. They're still a young company. They're still trying to figure it out. But the point that I'm trying to make is that they need something to get people talking about them in a positive light, because oftentimes it is negative. And because it is negative, it's important that AEW figures out how to get people positive again. Shane McMahon could be the guy that helps them. Now, if Shane McMahon comes into AEW, and let's say he debuts at All Out. If he debuts at All Out and we get some continuity with this Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir thing, I can guarantee that a lot of people will be overwhelmingly positive about this. Which I think is exactly what this company needs. They need some positivity. I have said, actually, that this year has been very strong for them storytelling-wise. But there's just been this negative energy surrounding the company for the last 2 years, where I think it has a direct impact on ticket sales and viewership. I think those two things, 1,000%, have a lot to do with the fact that there's a lot of negativity surrounding AEW. And I don't think AEW deserves all of it, but I do think Tony Khan, and the way that he's handled social media and the way he talks about WWE, I think Tony Khan has kind of opened the door for some of that criticism. I think it did rub people the wrong way. So if you're Tony Khan and you're bringing in Shane McMahon, this is a massive deal. I want people to understand the magnitude of this storyline, because there is so much good that could come from it, but it's truly up to AEW to do it. Now let's talk about this faction, because there's one thing I don't like about this faction, or whatever this is. I don't even know if I want to call it a faction. You got Claudio and Pac and Wheeler Yuta holding the trios belts. You got Jon Moxley being off of TV since Forbidden Door. And you got Bryan Danielson holding the world championship. What has happened to the BCC, the Blackpool Combat Club? What has happened to this group? There has been very, very little explanation as to what has happened with this group. And I think it is very hard for people to follow along. If it's hard for me to follow along, it's my job literally to watch this and discuss it. But if it's hard for me, then I think it's going to be a lot harder for those who might not tune in all the time. So there's something with the Blackpool Combat Club that is disconnected, and AEW hasn't properly explained it. So what would Jon Moxley's motive be to be working with Shane and Marina Shafir and whoever else joins this group? I know it is a little too early to jump to conclusions, but it is mandatory that if and when Shane McMahon joins AEW, it is absolutely mandatory for them to 1,000%, they got to explain why they're doing it. Because in kayfabe, or outside of kayfabe, it doesn't matter. We already saw Shane McMahon and Tony Khan talking. So I do find it to be a very weird situation, but it is an exciting situation. I hope it works out for them. I hope AEW gets Shane McMahon in AEW. I hope they do it at All Out, but I hope something good actually comes from this. I don't want to be talking about Britt Baker and MJF drama. I don't want to be talking about backstage fights. I don't want to be talking about CM Punk. I don't want to be talking about all this other bullshit that comes with the territory of watching AEW. What I want to talk about is good, positive, fun stories. And Shane McMahon showing up is a fun and positive story. But if Shane McMahon comes in there and he's just immediately talking shit about WWE, like, it's going to rub people the wrong way. And I think AEW has done that enough. And I'm not saying this to be critical of AEW, but sometimes you should just kind of read the room. WWE is incredibly hot right now. You are the challenger brand. Focus on your product. WWE is playing nice with all these other companies. You may have missed your chance because you took a different approach. And that's fine. There's reasons for it, whatever. But perception is reality. And I think a lot of people look at AEW in a lower level than they did before. And because of that, I think that's why we have seen a significant drop in their numbers. However, Shane McMahon, former, the son of the former WWE owner, decided to go to the opposition. The headlines, the social media, there's a lot of good that could come from that. It's how you execute that matters. The idea in principle is great. The idea has to be executed properly. So what do I think about Tommy Dreamer believing that Shane McMahon is showing up? Guys, I believe it too. And I believed it since day one, since that photo dropped. Thank you, Rick, for the super chat. Appreciate you. Sam Piboon dropped a $4.99. When will we see Cora Jade? I hope she helps Roxanne to beat Giulia. I don't know when we will see Cora Jade. I think she'll be coming back soon. But I don't want to see that happen. I low-key really want... I low-key want to see... I kind of want to see Cora Jade on the main roster, to be honest. That's kind of what I want to see. Chat, we are going to leave it to members only from this portion on. So if you are interested in chatting, become a member. It supports the channel. It's definitely appreciated. Everybody that's a member gets high priority. But I think it's time to talk a little bit about Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace, a lot of social media talk. Jordynne Grace teasing some stuff. Jordynne Grace being so open to working with WWE. I'm very curious if Jordynne Grace will join the WWE. I think we have gotten to the point where with Jordynne Grace that it should be expected that she'll probably join the WWE. And so I kind of want to talk about that. I want to know what you guys think. I think, nice little glitch from YouTube. Yeah, no, I think Jordynne Grace is, look, if Jordynne Grace leaves TNA for WWE, it's going to really hurt TNA. It's really going to hurt TNA. But we know that she has the open challenge next week on NXT. And who's going to answer that? Will it be Delta? Will it be Stephanie Vaquer? I mean, who is it going to be? Who knows? But somebody is going to be... Somebody's going to be answering that open challenge. And they're not going to win. Probably not. But there is this idea that Jordynne Grace could be on her way to WWE. And honestly, I just find it to be crazy. I look, TNA just lost Giselle Shaw. I don't know what else to. That could be one of the downsides to the partnership with one of the downsides to the partnership with WWE and TNA. Phil says, I truly believe that Stephanie will be debuting on the first episode on the CW. That would be huge. I would actually much rather see Jordynne Grace do the open challenge on the debut episode of the CW. But I just don't think TNA would have Jordynne Grace drop the belt to somebody else. Mike says TNA working with WWE means that talent that WWE signed can still end up on TNA TV. That is true, but will WWE do that? And how long will they do that for? Because if Jordynne Grace does sign to WWE and she leaves TNA, like that's a big blow to TNA. Massive blow to TNA. And then at that point, I would start wondering about that. I would start wondering a little bit about that partnership. So those are things to absolutely factor in. 100%. And TNA can't afford that right now. TNA has momentum, but if you start losing your stars to TNA, from TNA to WWE or to AEW, it's bad. And that's the risk of being the third biggest company, is that your roster will always be more incentivized to join the larger companies because of the money. So I don't know. It's a very, very, very interesting situation. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude our stream. And I appreciate you all greatly for showing up. A great stream. Actually, more viewers today than yesterday, so I appreciate that a lot. Thank you, guys. Super chats, awesome. Members, awesome. I appreciate you guys. I know some of y'all got to get back to work. And we'll remain consistent on this show. We'll keep trying new things and all that fun stuff. But I do appreciate you guys pulling up. So with that being said, I'll see you next time.
Like that.